Hello, and welcome to the HPE GreenLake, the cloud that comes to you briefing. I always like to thank my guests for joining me. I sound like an airline, people say, but I do realize you have a choice and you've chosen to listen to this briefing. So I thank you very much. But before we get going, I'd like to introduce myself personally. So, hi, I'm Brian Falvey. I am the North American Sales Director for our public sector services business at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Public sectors, all of our state, local, and education, and our federal government customers. And so I'm here today to talk to you about HPE GreenLake. I hope you've heard a lot about it, but if you haven't, you're going to learn a lot in a minute. And so with that, let's get going. Just to set some perspective on things, obviously, COVID has presented a really unprecedented challenge to all of us in the United States and around the world, on every business, every person of every age. It's been amazing disruption to our lives, and it has required an amazing response. It has had a particular impact on higher education, of course, and I really want to dig into that just a little bit to set the stage. So, what's interesting about COVID is while it has certainly been the cause of a lot of the problems, it's interesting that COVID also is kind of preventing our ability to solve them at the same time. So here's an interesting study from Deloitte, and there's a little pull quote there about how the pandemic has, as they say, upended business as usual for colleges, and I think that's an understatement. But I noticed these two things, right, that are spot on. Shifting to remote learning almost overnight. Speed. This is all about speed. I put that little calendar logo up there. That's really about, we're talking about days, not months of planning. In days, you've got to figure out a new solution. The other big piece is the grave financial challenges. A lot of universities are strained around enrollment issues and so forth. And we all know that cash is tighter than ever. So to try to implement some of the greatest change overnight with the greatest of speed and on the shortest amount of cash is a really massive, massive undertaking. And so certainly time or speed and money are critical, but I think we can never forget what I think is also equally important, in fact, most important, is people. And so if you look at this article, I got a kick out of it, the 7 biggest higher ed technology challenges. It talks about 7 different challenges, and number 7 is strained IT departments. For me, I think no amount of money or good ideas in the world are worth anything unless you have great human beings to implement them. And the idea that an existing IT department can do this is really kind of silly. And so, for me, I think all 7 of these, the top 7, should be strained IT departments. I'm sure you're feeling it. You and your staffs have to deal with amazing amounts of change and disruption, and all on your own. And again, without the money and without the time to do it right in a lot of cases. And so what I want to talk about today, or actually what I want to address is, kind of my vision of you. And so this is you, sorry. This young lady is a proxy for all of our IT leaders that are out there in higher education, who basically have all of these constituents who they're trying to serve and do right by and keep happy on a day-to-day basis. Because we think about higher education IT as often as, distance learning and students, that there are so many constituents that are relying on you. And as I put up in the corner of this slide, everybody expects it to just work, right? It just works. Whatever you do, it just works. And so that is a very high bar to meet, especially with the constraints we've been talking about. And so what I want to do is basically introduce you to HPE GreenLake and identify how HPE GreenLake can really be a lifesaver in this time when everybody needs some saving to help you get through whatever your next challenge, whatever your next disruption is. GreenLake really is a perfect packaged answer for everything you're going to need. And so I want to get into a discussion about it. But first, we have a lot of GreenLake customers already, and we've done a lot of studies, and we've had other companies have done studies on them. So I want to get into basically what those studies have indicated to us. So first, a big study indicated that the time to deploy new projects is 75% faster with GreenLake. And that's because of the speed with which infrastructure can be delivered to you. The second is cost. GreenLake results in 30 to 40% cost reduction, and probably more importantly is cash flow reduction, because you don't have big outlays for infrastructure. GreenLake is going to deliver infrastructure as you need it and deliver the economics of the transaction are a monthly bill. right, tied to your consumption. So there isn't that big capital outlay, which is critical right now as cash is tight at so many universities and colleges. And finally is productivity, not to be overlooked. The fact that you outsource basically your IT operations for this basic operations to Hewlett Packard Enterprise as part of a GreenLake relationship frees up your team. And so that's where we've found a 40% increase in productivity just by taking that load off of strained IT staff's plates. And so where does that put us? Really, I'd like to just kind of jump in then into each of these and talk first about the time savings and how GreenLake can be implemented with the speed that you need for your operations. So the first is the fact that GreenLake is easily orderable. I think that's really important. It's, the idea that you need to do significant planning and architecture and all of these kind of activities just to get the right infrastructure in place is removed by the fact that you can simply choose from pre-architected workloads and things like that. Some of them can be ordered and arrive in as quickly as 14 days, which I think many of you would have, or if you happen to be a GreenLake customer, perhaps enjoyed during your response to COVID. Our people do the install, we do the configuration, we make sure that it's on site, on time, and is up and running for you. So what we hand over is a production ready, something you can move into a production environment, not just more infrastructure that you now have to troubleshoot and fix and tune to your systems. So it is a kind of out of the box solution in a lot of cases. It can also be very customizable, but the speed factor really comes when you get something that's really pre-configured and out of the box and ready to go. The cycle though continues over the life of the relationship, because as you need more or as you have another project, you simply tap on your GreenLake relationship and HPE is your partner. Hey, I need more infrastructure for some other project, and we can bring that in with the same kind of speed. And so it becomes not a purchasing activity, but it's really the beginning of a relationship. And I think that's critical, and it's how we actually deliver with speed and allows you to execute with the speed that's going to be expected of you. So in addition, just kind of think about what that means for the different people who might be touching IT operations. Developers have the ability to, hey, I need to work on some code and get something production ready from a code perspective. We can deliver them infrastructure quickly. Data scientists, how about your finance peoples, right? Your finance leadership, wondering about what's my current cash flow, how much money do I have to invest? And you say, hey, well, don't worry about it. I have a plan, and here's what the monthly bill forecast is, and what we expect it to be, and there is no big capital outlay. So that's critical, and that's going to allow you to get through that process a lot faster and get the infrastructure you need in hands. Your legal and compliance will be happy knowing that patches and firmware are up to date and security policies are complied with, and really, for you in IT and IT leadership. Just knowing what you've got, knowing that you're covered is critical, and knowing that you have access to more with speed is vital. Huge, huge value proposition for GreenLake. And so with that, I do want to get into the next topic, which seems to be always one of the most interest, which is cash, right? And how does GreenLake deliver the savings that we're talking about? And so let's just take a look at your classic, what I call over provisioning situation. So this graph, just to orient you, along the bottom of the graph is time, and up the left side of the graph, that yellow line is, I think, infrastructure spend. For me, I just call it stuff. It's stuff you need to run your IT operation. But let's say you start on day one or time zero. With actual utilization of about where that orange star is. Okay, so that's where you're operating today. And now you're going to take on some new project or refresh infrastructure or all of the above, whatever it is. You go to the well, you go through a procurement process, and you're always thinking 3-year, 5-year life cycle. I better plan for the future. What am I going to need 5 years from now? Wow, that could be incredible. I'll just buy it all now. It's the very, very common practice. And what happens is, even though your utilization is down there where that orange star is, your provision decision is way up there where that white line is, because you're thinking, I got to future-proof this acquisition, this purchase. And what happens? Well, maybe your utilization kind of grows like this, right? And over time, your utilization creeps up. And while it's growing up into this infrastructure, that purple area is just straight waste. You've spent a ton of money acquiring something that you didn't use for, let's say, years. Okay. And then, what's kind of fun in this example is, perhaps you finally did grow into it, and actually you grew out of it really fast as well. and you didn't have a GreenLake relationship, remember that talk about speed? You didn't have the ability to get new infrastructure in place with the speed that you need. And that's a huge, huge value of GreenLake. So let's see what this same situation would look like in a GreenLake relationship. That green line is where GreenLake capacity would be fielded. So HPE would bring in the GreenLake capacity, bring in the infrastructure that's just a little more than what you need. We work with you. Remember, it's a partnership. So we're always in constant communication about what your utilization needs might be. And we know when we need to bring in more infrastructure and so forth. And we always stay just ahead of the game, or ahead of the curve, if you will, and making sure that you've got the right infrastructure. I call it, instead of just in time, I like to call it just ahead of time. So really just ahead of time, you're always going to have the infrastructure you need, and you're not going to run out. Okay, and that's a really, really valuable part of GreenLake. And remember, you're only paying your monthly bill. There is no big buy that's speculative and often just wasteful. And so that's where the real cash savings comes in. So the overall cost of ownership savings is substantial, but the cash flow savings, which is critical, especially right now, is huge. And so that's how GreenLake can really save you. So I kind of look at it like this when we talk about over provisioning. We have, this is my example. This is a 13-year-old girl, and it just so happens to be her birthday. And so what do you get a 13-year-old girl for her birthday? Well, when I have a live audience and a big crowd, people always yell out things. They have some fun with it. Somebody will say a cell phone. Somebody will say some kind of K-pop album or concert tickets or something like that. And there's always one joker out there who says a pony. And but yeah, maybe transportation is the right thing, because for me, and in this business, if you have a 13-year-old girl, we're going to get her, of all things, of course, a new car, right? So we're going to get her a new car because she needs it in 3 years. We think she's going to need a car 3 years from now. So let's take our money right now and sink it into that car. And let's not forget this. We've got to build that car a garage. We've got to take up space with that. And, don't forget this little detail. We're going to leave it running 24/7 for 3 years. That car is going to run in the garage. We will continue to put fuel in it. We will continue to replace parts as they break and wear out. And the warranty will run on that vehicle. And then 3 years from now, when little princess grows up and needs that car, it's 3 years old and the warranty's already run. And so that is, really fundamentally an absurdity in this context. But for some reason, in the context of IT, it just isn't accepted as an absurdity. It's kind of normal practice. We all do it. We've all done it. And this is what GreenLake really addresses. There's an easy savings and humongous efficiencies that come from just fixing this one problem. And GreenLake does that for you. Again, especially in this time when cash is so tight, this is the route you're going to want to take. So with that, let me just turn again to the teams. Right? I mentioned that it's going to free up your team. So for starters, when your team orders a new configuration, some kind of new workload, new project, some new thing with GreenLake, we have pre-configured workloads. You're not going to spend time architecting and will this work with that, and is there compatibility issues? It's basically, I need a VDI environment. So we say, what do you need? Small, medium, large? Oh, you need large? Here comes large VDI environment, and we deploy it to you. And again, we deploy it, we install it, we maintain it. We take care of all of the basic functions of managing and supporting that infrastructure day in and day out. And the most important part is your people are freed up to go work on that next solution, that next innovation that's going to be needed, whatever the next pandemic is that requires some change in the way we operate, whatever that may be. Your team's there and ready to respond. And take care of that business and deliver their highest value to your organization, instead of, geez, I wish I had time to work on that. I'm doing a firmware upgrade, or I've got some patches I got to do over on these servers. All of that is off your plate. Critical value of GreenLake that it's hard to quantify. It's hard to write that in the financial ledger, but it must be considered because it is substantial. Remember, 40% more productivity out of your IT teams just by adopting GreenLake. So that's huge. And just to give you a quick idea, I just want to share with you kind of the breadth of offerings under GreenLake. So, here's just some high level concepts. VDI is down there in the bottom right. I know that's a hot topic for everyone these days. But these are the kind of things. These are the areas in which we have catalogs of architectures that can work for you. Okay, and that's going to save you a ton of time. And again, we come in and maintain them. So just to recap that, we're saving you time by taking care of the design, architecture. Our experts can come in and help you get it done right, forecast it right, build it right, whatever it takes, making sure it's done right and set up for success, before it even goes in the box, let alone out of the box. Then we can also modernize your infrastructure, figure out a plan for rolling in modernization, migrating data, things like that. We can take care of those things. And of course, as I've said so many times here, operate the infrastructure for you and remove that burden from your plate. And that is critical. So just to kind of recap as we wind down here, really I just want to make it clear, I guess, that this is not something new. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise has been engaged in GreenLake service offerings for over a decade now. I think we basically kind of invented it. We have $4 billion in business we've already conducted in countries around the world with thousands of customers. And so, that's a lovely story. So how do we hit a little closer to home? We do have several higher education customers that have done meaningful GreenLake deployments. Few examples. Unfortunately, I can't mention them by name, but here's a university that stood up a student portal, all right, with a 0.5 petabyte of storage and compute just to manage their kind of intranet for their students and faculty. In 2 years, they came back and said, we need more, we need more, we need more. 8 times over the first 2 years of this relationship. The environment doubled in size. Every new project is now going GreenLake because why would you do anything different? They absolutely love it and is now the go-to solution at that university. The second is a network of universities that had some old storage that needed to be refreshed but had limited budget. And so they were really looking at, well, how do we kind of rip and replace this entire environment and do it with some IT efficiency and some economic efficiency? And what they decided on was a bunch of the equipment was so old that it was just time to replace it. And so we came in and took the old stuff out, migrated the data over, and installed a shining new environment with GreenLake. For a bunch of the other server arrays and so forth, they still had a depreciable life. And this is where your CFO is going to love you. They had depreciable life left on them, which is kind of an asset and a good thing for your organization. So they actually said, well, let's refresh them as their depreciable life ends on each asset, which was really clever. And we accommodated that and have rolled out the refresh strategy with them. So, there's a lot more than just IT at play here and a lot of reasons to adopt GreenLake. The last one is a large university medical center who, they adopted GreenLake for all the reasons I've been talking about, right? The speed, the money, the extra productivity of their staff. But I just wanted to highlight this one because I found it to be just really interesting and kind of germane to higher education. They said, wait a minute, if we move things off site, we won't have on-premise infrastructure for our graduate students and our computer science students who actually count on being able to be kind of hands-on and work with these machines to actually learn. And so it became a real driving factor for GreenLake. I think they were headed down a GreenLake path anyway, but this was just a really interesting piece that resonated in the higher education community. So really, before I wrap up, I just want to say, hey, first of all, speed in the bottom left corner there. Just remember these 3 takeaways from today. The speed of GreenLake and how it can help you deploy projects and take care of whatever's being asked of you faster than you ever thought you could before. The second is cash, your overall cost savings, but also your cash flow. Managing that cash flow and being able to preserve cash at a time like this is vital. It will make you a hero with the finance folks in your organization. And then the last piece is that team. Not to be underestimated, the criticality of your team having some of that burden taken off their lap so they can actually deliver the value that they can and that they probably take delight in delivering in their careers rather than being chained to servers in a data center. So these are the 3 critical factors that make GreenLake a can't miss solution and something I really encourage you to investigate. So hey, I'll wrap up. I'll come back and say goodbye again. And thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and I hope to find a way to help all of you modernize your infrastructure, deploy new projects, and take advantage of all of the value that Hewlett-Packard is sitting here waiting to offer you to help you in your journey to solve the challenges and new things that will come up with COVID. So with that, my contact info is right here. It's on the next slide, and take a look at that. And so if anybody wants to reach out to me, it's on the last slide, and that's about it. So thank you. There it is, last slide. So thank you very much, and have a great day, and may you all be healthy, safe, you and your families and friends. I really hope the best for all of you. Thank you so much again.